Date, October 20, 2025. 2. Legal Department, Google LLC/YouTube, LLC and all employees. 1600 Amphitheater Parkway, Mountain View, California 94043. From DJ Tracks. Concerned Content Creator. 1. Executive Summary. This letter serves as a formal and new cease and desist notice to Google LLC, YouTube LLC, and all associated employees. It addresses the entire platform and all personnel, citing a decade-long pattern of arbitrary, AI-driven moderation practices and failure to address impersonation that have affected millions of users worldwide. Since approximately 2012, these practices have deleted, shadow removed, or flagged lawful content without explanation, issued unwarranted warnings, strikes, or suspensions on accounts, compromised user privacy and security, including requests for personal identification, ID, verification, failed to prevent or address impersonation of users and channels, resulting in reputational harm, fraud, and user confusion, created a platform-wide environment of systemic bias, particularly in political content moderation, demonstrated favoritism toward a specific political party, namely the Democratic National Committee, DNC, thereby undermining neutrality, undermine trust and transparency promised under Google and YouTube's Terms of Service, TOS. These issues are not isolated incidents but represent a long-standing, platform-wide pattern of wrongful conduct. The AI-based moderation system and employee enforcement exhibit arbitrary enforcement, lack of transparency, and politically biased decision-making, resulting in suppression of lawful expression, facilitation of impersonation, and potential violations of federal law, civil rights, the U.S. Constitution, and international human rights principles. 2. Detailed timeline and platform-wide issues. Over the past decade, numerous instances of wrongful moderation, impersonation, and privacy violations have been observed across the YouTube and Google platforms. While illustrative examples are included here, the issues are systemic and affect all users. 2012 to 2015, users began reporting unexplained deletions of comments and videos, often flagged as spam without merit. Repeated warnings issued led to account strikes and suspensions. Impersonation scams began to proliferate, with little effective response from the platform, resulting in users losing access to their own channels or reputations being damaged by fraudulent actors. 2016 to 2018, AI moderation systems were implemented more widely, resulting in automated deletions of content without human review. Lawful comments expressing political or social opinions were disproportionately removed. Impersonation of creators and channels increased, leading to fraud, phishing, and reputational damage, with many users reporting that their likeness, branding, or channel names were copied to deceive others. 2019 to 2021, users were increasingly required to submit personal identification, ID, for verification under unclear circumstances, raising serious privacy concerns and potential violations of rights to data protection. Impersonation complaints continued, with fraudulent accounts often left unaddressed, and victims receiving little to no support from the platform. 2022 present, AI moderation continues to suppress lawful content, enforce biased rulings, and prevent users from participating fully in the platform's community. Shadow bans and algorithmic suppression of entire accounts have been observed, creating an environment of fear and uncertainty for lawful expression. Impersonation, phishing, and scam accounts remain a persistent threat, with inadequate platform response, and many users reporting financial loss, reputational harm, and emotional distress as a result. The above timeline illustrates a decade-long pattern of systemic misconduct, including impersonation, biased coverage favoring the DNC, affecting millions of users and undermining the platform's credibility and stated commitments. 3. AI moderation, systemic bias, and impersonation. The AI-based moderation system employed by Google and YouTube and overseen by their employees is designed to flag content automatically. However, it demonstrates multiple critical flaws. Arbitrary enforcement. Lawful content is frequently deleted or flagged without explanation. Content that fully complies with TOS is removed, while similar content with different viewpoints remains untouched. Political bias and favoritism. The AI and involved employees exhibit consistent bias in moderation, favoring the Democratic National Committee, DNC, and related viewpoints while suppressing opposing or neutral content. This results in unequal treatment of users and communities and undermines platform neutrality. Lack of transparency. Users receive no meaningful explanation of why content was removed or flagged. Appeals processes are unclear, slow, or ineffective. Failure to address impersonation. The platform's moderation systems and staff have failed to prevent or respond to impersonation of users and channels, enabling fraud, phishing, and reputational harm. Many impersonators have been able to deceive audiences, solicit money, or spread misinformation using the likeness of legitimate creators. Platform-wide impact. The AI system and employee enforcement are not isolated. They operate across the entire platform, affecting millions of users and creating an environment where lawful speech is routinely suppressed and impersonation is inadequately addressed. The consequences of these flaws are substantial, including suppression of free expression, reputational damage, financial loss, and eroded trust in the platform. 4. Legal and ethical frameworks potentially violated, with citations. While this letter does not constitute legal judgment, the ongoing actions across Google, YouTube, and their employees may implicate or violate the following frameworks. A. Federal laws. Communications Decency Act, CDA, Section 230, 47 U.S.C. Section 230. While this statute generally provides immunity to online platforms for user-generated content, Goddard v. Google, Inc. 640 F. Sup. 2D 1193, ND Cal 2009, Wozniak v. YouTube, LLC, H050042, Cal, CT App, 2024, it does not shield platforms from liability for their own conduct, including wrongful moderation, privacy violations, or discriminatory enforcement. Ongoing legal debate and Supreme Court review, Gonzalez v. Google LLC, 598 U.S. 617, 2023, highlight the limits of this immunity, especially where platforms' own algorithms and policies are at issue. Notably, failure to address impersonation and fraudulent accounts may fall outside Section 230 protections if the platform is found to have materially contributed to the illegality. Computer Fraud and Abuse Act, CFAA, 18 U.S.C. Section 1030. Systematic interference with account access or functionality, or unauthorized collection and misuse of user data, may violate the CFAA. Impersonation and phishing scams facilitated by inadequate platform controls may also implicate this statute. Privacy statutes. Unauthorized collection, storage, or exposure of user data, including ID requests, may constitute violations of U.S. privacy laws. Potential liability. Google, YouTube, and their employees may be sued for violations of applicable U.S. laws regardless of their stated reasoning or justification for AI moderation or account actions. Especially given evidence of political favoritism toward the DNC and failure to address impersonation. B. Civil rights. First Amendment. Suppression of lawful content and viewpoints may interfere with freedom of expression. Equal protection principles. Biased moderation creates disparate treatment based on viewpoint, political content, or subject matter. See Bill of Rights. First Amendment. Protection of freedom of speech and expression. Fourth Amendment. Right to privacy, including protection against unauthorized collection or disclosure of personal information, including ID submissions. D. Human rights. UDHR Article 12. Right to privacy and protection against arbitrary interference with personal data. UDHR Article 19. Right to freedom of opinion and expression. UDHR Article 20. Right to participate in peaceful discussion and community activities. YouTube Terms of Service, TOS. Fair and transparent moderation. Obligation to notify users clearly regarding removals, strikes, and warnings. Protection of user content, privacy, and data integrity. Prohibition of impersonation and fraudulent activity. 5. Privacy, data, and impersonation concerns. Google, YouTube, and their employees' practices raise significant concerns regarding user privacy, data protection, and impersonation. Forced ID verification, requiring users to submit personal identification for verification under unclear or arbitrary circumstances constitutes a serious privacy violation. Data exposure risks. Alleged leaks of user data via dark web or deep web channels exacerbate the threat to user privacy and safety. Systemic misuse. AI moderation systems and employee enforcement may inadvertently collect or expose personal information beyond what is necessary for content enforcement. Impersonation and fraud. The platform's failure to prevent or promptly address impersonation of users and channels has enabled widespread scams, phishing, and reputational harm, in violation of both platform policy and legal standards. Victims of impersonation have reported financial loss, emotional distress, and permanent damage to their online reputation. Immediate corrective action is demanded to ensure full protection of all user data, investigation of any past breaches, and assurance that personal information, including submitted IDs, will not be misused or exposed. The platform must also take immediate and effective steps to detect, remove, and prevent impersonation and fraudulent accounts. 6. Specific demands. You are hereby demanded to take the following actions within 3 to 7 days of receipt of this letter. Cease unjustified platform-wide AI moderation, immediately halt deletion, shadow removal, or unwarranted warnings applied by AI systems and employees across Google and YouTube. Transparency. Provide a detailed explanation of AI moderation processes, including human oversight and decision-making criteria. Content restoration. Reinstate all content removed or suppressed without valid cause. Evidence preservation. Retain all logs, moderation notes, AI outputs, and metadata relevant to affected accounts and content. Privacy assurance. Immediately halt improper collection of personal identification and prevent exposure of user data. Investigate any potential leaks. Impersonation prevention. Implement robust measures to detect, remove, and prevent impersonation and fraudulent accounts, and provide timely remedies for affected users. Plan for non-recurrence. Submit a written plan to prevent future AI bias, wrongful moderation, privacy violations, and impersonation, including elimination of political favoritism. User notification. Notify affected users of actions taken to restore fairness, privacy, and transparency. 7. Enforcement clause and permanent non-contact. Failure to comply with this cease and desist notice will result in immediate legal action in court. This may include claims for breach of contract, interference with free expression, privacy violations, facilitation of impersonation, or other remedies under applicable law. No further communications or contact from Google, YouTube, or any employees to the sender are to occur, as all contact is permanently forbidden. Any attempts to contact the sender will be considered a violation of this cease and desist and may result in additional legal action. Legal liability notice: Google, YouTube, and all employees may be sued for violating applicable U.S. laws, regulations, and rights regardless of any internal reasoning, justification, or explanation provided for AI moderation, account actions, impersonation, or content removal, particularly where political favoritism toward the DNC is implicated. This letter does not constitute a waiver of any rights, and the sender reserves all rights to pursue legal remedies without prior notice. 8. Response instructions. Given the permanent non-contact requirement, no direct communications are required or accepted. Compliance will be deemed based on observable actions regarding content restoration, cessation of AI moderation abuse, elimination of political favoritism, protection of user data, and prevention of impersonation as outlined. 9. Extended narrative: the human impact of systemic moderation failures and impersonation. The consequences of Google and YouTube's platform-wide moderation failures and failure to address impersonation are not merely technical or procedural, they are deeply human. Over the past decade, countless users have experienced the following. Loss of community: entire communities have been fractured as lawful comments, discussions, and even entire channels have been removed or shadow banned without warning or explanation. Users who once relied on YouTube for connection, education, and creative expression have been silenced, forced to migrate to alternative platforms, or have left online spaces entirely. Emotional and psychological harm: the arbitrary and opaque nature of AI moderation and the trauma of impersonation have led to frustration, anxiety, and a sense of powerlessness among users. Many have reported feeling targeted, discriminated against, or unfairly punished for expressing lawful opinions or sharing creative works. Victims of impersonation often experience fear, embarrassment, and loss of trust in the platform. Economic and professional damage. For creators who rely on YouTube as a source of income or professional reputation, wrongful moderation and impersonation have resulted in demonetization, loss of sponsorships, scams, and irreparable harm to their livelihoods. The lack of transparency and recourse has made it impossible for affected users to defend themselves or restore their standing. Chilling effect on free expression: the knowledge that lawful content may be removed or suppressed at any time, without warning or explanation, and that one's identity may be stolen or misused by impersonators, has led to widespread self-censorship. Users are increasingly reluctant to share opinions, participate in discussions, or create content that could be misinterpreted by AI moderation systems or exploited by bad actors. These harms are not hypothetical, they are documented, widespread, and ongoing. The platform's failure to provide clear, fair, and transparent moderation processes and to protect users from impersonation has eroded trust and undermined the very principles of open communication and creative freedom that YouTube once championed. 10. Illustrative examples of wrongful moderation and impersonation. To further illustrate the scope and severity of these issues, the following examples are provided. These are representative of thousands of similar incidents reported by users worldwide. Example 1. A user posts a comment praising a video's editing style, only to have the comment instantly deleted and receive a warning for spam. No links, offensive language, or prohibited content were present. Example 2. A creator uploads a documentary discussing current events. The video is demonetized and shadow banned, with no clear explanation, while similar content from favored channels remains untouched. Example 3. Users discussing political topics critical of the DNC or expressing alternative viewpoints find their comments removed, their accounts flagged, and their ability to participate in discussions restricted. Example 4. A long-time user is suddenly required to submit government-issued ID to access their account, with no clear justification or assurance of data protection. The user later discovers that their personal information may have been exposed in a data breach. Example 5. Creators who appeal wrongful moderation decisions receive only automated responses, with no meaningful human review or opportunity to contest the actions taken against them. Example 6. Impersonation. A creator's channel is copied by an impersonator who uses the same branding and profile image to solicit donations from unsuspecting fans, resulting in financial loss and reputational harm to the legitimate creator. Example 7. Impersonation. Multiple users report receiving phishing messages from accounts impersonating well-known creators, leading to account theft and further scams. Example 8. Impersonation. Victims of impersonation find it nearly impossible to get fraudulent accounts removed, with support tickets ignored or closed without action. These examples are not isolated, they are symptomatic of a systemic failure in platform governance, moderation, user protection, and anti-impersonation measures. 11. Analysis of AI moderation, impersonation, technical and ethical failures. The reliance on AI-driven moderation systems and the failure to address impersonation have introduced a host of technical and ethical failures. Overbroad keyword filtering. AI systems flag and remove content based on simplistic keyword matching, resulting in the deletion of lawful, contextually appropriate comments and videos. Reputation scoring and shadow banning. Users who are flagged once may be subjected to ongoing, invisible penalties, including shadow bans and increased scrutiny, without notification or recourse. Lack of human oversight. Appeals and moderation reviews are often handled by automated systems, with little to no meaningful human intervention, leading to persistent errors and injustices. Opaque algorithms. The criteria used by AI systems to flag, remove, or suppress content are not disclosed to users, making it impossible to understand or challenge moderation decisions. Political and ideological bias. The training data and enforcement patterns of AI moderation systems reflect and reinforce political biases, particularly favoring the DNC and suppressing dissenting or alternative viewpoints. Impersonation negligence. The platform's failure to proactively detect, remove, and prevent impersonation has enabled widespread scams, phishing, and reputational harm, undermining user safety and trust. These failures undermine the legitimacy of the platform's moderation practices and violate users' rights to fair treatment, transparency, due process, and protection from impersonation. 12. Legal and regulatory risks. Expanded discussion. The ongoing conduct of Google, YouTube, and their employees exposes the platform to significant legal and regulatory risks, including but not limited to federal investigations. The pattern of biased moderation, privacy violations, impersonation negligence, and lack of transparency may trigger investigations by federal agencies, including the Federal Trade Commission, FTC, and the Department of Justice, DOJ. Civil litigation. Affected users may pursue class action lawsuits or individual claims for breach of contract, violation of civil rights, privacy breaches, facilitation of impersonation, and other harms. International scrutiny. The platform's practices may violate international human rights standards and data protection regulations, including the General Data Protection Regulation, GDPR, in the European Union. Congressional oversight. Lawmakers have expressed growing concern over the role of AI moderation and impersonation in suppressing free expression and political diversity online. Continued misconduct may result in hearings, subpoenas, and legislative action. The risks are not theoretical, they are real, imminent, and growing with each new incident of wrongful moderation, impersonation, and privacy violation. 13. Expanded demands for remediation and reform. In addition to the specific demands previously outlined, the following actions are required to restore trust, protect users, and bring the platform into compliance with legal and ethical standards. Comprehensive audit, commission an independent, third-party audit of all AI moderation systems, enforcement practices, data handling procedures, and anti-impersonation measures. The results must be made public and include recommendations for reform. Restitution for affected users, provide compensation, reinstatement, and public apologies to users who have suffered wrongful moderation, demonetization, impersonation, or privacy violations. Ongoing transparency reports, publish regular, detailed reports on moderation actions, appeals outcomes, impersonation complaints, and algorithmic changes, including data on political and ideological impacts. User representation, establish a user advisory council with representation from diverse communities, including those who have been disproportionately affected by wrongful moderation and impersonation. Algorithmic fairness and accountability, implement safeguards to ensure that AI moderation systems are free from political bias, discriminatory enforcement, arbitrary decision-making, and that impersonation is proactively addressed. Enhanced privacy and anti-impersonation protections. Cease all unnecessary collection of personal identification, implement robust data security and anti-impersonation measures, and provide users with clear, accessible tools to control their personal information and report impersonation. Effective appeals and impersonation response process. Guarantee that all moderation and impersonation complaints can be appealed to a qualified human reviewer, with clear timelines and transparent outcomes. Failure to implement these reforms will be interpreted as willful disregard for user rights, legal obligations, and the platform's own stated values. 14. Reservation of rights and escalation clause. This letter constitutes a formal and final notice. The sender reserves all rights to pursue legal, regulatory, and public remedies without further warning or communication. If the demands outlined herein are not met within the specified 3 to 7 day compliance window, the following actions may be taken without further notice. Filing of lawsuits in state and federal courts against Google LLC, YouTube LLC, and individual employees responsible for wrongful moderation, impersonation, and privacy violations. Submission of formal complaints to regulatory agencies, including the FTC, DOJ, and international data protection authorities. Public disclosure of this letter and supporting evidence to media outlets, advocacy organizations, and elected officials. Coordination with other affected users to pursue collective action, class action litigation, or public campaigns for accountability and reform. No further contact from Google, YouTube, or their employees is permitted. Any attempt to contact the sender will be considered a violation of this cease and desist and may result in additional legal action. 15. Conclusion. The issues outlined in this letter are grave, systemic, and demand immediate action. The platform's continued reliance on flawed AI moderation, lack of transparency, political bias, disregard for user privacy, and failure to address impersonation have caused widespread harm and violated fundamental rights. The sender, on behalf of all affected users, demands that Google LLC, YouTube LLC, and all employees cease all wrongful moderation, impersonation, and privacy violations. Restore affected content and accounts. Implement comprehensive reforms to ensure fairness, transparency, accountability, and user protection from impersonation. Comply fully with all applicable laws, regulations, and ethical standards. Failure to do so will result in immediate legal and regulatory action, as outlined above. Sincerely, DJ Tracks. Concerned Content Creator.